The wind howled over the desolate mountains, the kind of wind that seemed to cut right through the bone. Mark had been driving for hours, his car tires humming over the winding dirt road, when he saw the sign. Welcome to Black Hollow. It was a small town, tucked away deep in the wilderness, far from the prying eyes of the city. He had heard rumors, tales of strange disappearances, of people going missing without a trace, but he never put much stock in ghost stories. It was just an isolated place, nothing more. But when Mark's car broke down in the middle of nowhere, far from the nearest town or cell service, Black Hollow was the only place he could reach. He pulled into the town just before dusk, the last rays of sunlight casting long shadows across the narrow streets. The town was eerily quiet, the kind of silence that felt suffocating. There were no children playing, no people walking down the sidewalks, just empty houses with peeling paint and closed shutters. It was as if the entire town had decided to hide behind its curtains, unwilling to acknowledge the world outside. Mark decided to make the best of it. He pulled up to the local diner, hoping to find someone who could help with his car. The bell above the door rang as he stepped inside, and he was greeted by the clink of coffee cups and the low murmur of conversation. But there was something off. The people sitting at the counter didn't look at him directly. Their eyes shifted nervously as he sat down. A waitress came over, her smile stiff like it was painted on. "What can I get you?" she asked, her voice flat. "Just a coffee, and... do you know anyone who can help me with my car?" "I'm stuck here for the night," Mark asked, trying to keep his tone casual. The waitress's eyes darted to the window, as if she was afraid someone might hear. "You shouldn't be here," she muttered under her breath, before quickly walking away. Mark sat there, his coffee growing cold, as the silence in the diner thickened. The other patrons kept their heads down, avoiding his gaze. He could feel the weight of their stares, even if they never looked directly at him. He was an outsider, a threat. And that's when he started to feel it, the unmistakable sense of being watched. A man sitting at the far end of the counter finally spoke up. His voice was rough, his hands shaking as he lifted his mug. "You're here for a reason," he said, his voice low and gravelly. "They always come." Mark frowned, unsure whether the man was drunk or just paranoid, but something in his tone struck a chord with him. "Who?" Mark asked, though he had an inkling he didn't want to know. The man's eyes widened and he leaned in, his breath ragged. "They come at night, in the dark, the ones who never leave. They take people, always at dusk, always when the light fades, and no one who's gone has ever returned. They just disappear." Mark shook his head, dismissing the man's ramblings as nonsense. He just needed a place to stay, and then he could figure out how to fix his car in the morning. But when he stood up to leave, the waitress returned, her face pale. She put a hand on his arm, her fingers icy cold. "You can't stay here," she said in a voice so urgent it was almost a plea. "Please, just leave. There's nothing for you here. Just go." But it was too late. The door to the diner slammed open, and Mark turned just in time to see a shadow standing in the doorway. It was tall, impossibly tall, and its features were obscured by the darkness, like it was more shadow than substance. The town went silent. No one moved. No one even breathed. The air felt thick, as though the entire world was holding its breath. Then, without warning, the figure in the doorway stepped forward. It moved with an unnatural grace, gliding across the floor without a sound. Its presence was suffocating, like a storm was approaching. Mark tried to move, to run, but his legs wouldn't obey him. He was frozen. The shadow reached out a long, spindly arm and touched the waitress. Her face went pale, her eyes wide in terror as she fell to the ground, lifeless. The room erupted into chaos. The other patrons began to scream, but their screams were swallowed by the figure's presence. It moved through the diner, and one by one, the people began to disappear, vanishing into the dark like smoke in the wind. And then it was Mark's turn. The figure turned its gaze to him, and for a brief moment, Mark saw its face, a twisted, hollow thing, its eyes empty voids that seemed to devour everything in their path. The last thing Mark felt before the darkness took him was an overwhelming sense of dread, a sinking feeling that he was being pulled into something far beyond his understanding. When Mark awoke, he was lying in the middle of the road, the sun rising in the distance. He sat up, disoriented, his heart racing. His car was gone. The diner was gone. The town was gone. Everything that had once been there, the people, the buildings, had vanished as if they had never existed. Except for one thing. A small, crumpled photograph lay in the dirt before him. It was of him, standing in front of the diner, smiling like he had been a part of it all along. But in the background, just barely visible, stood the figure, watching. Mark understood then. The people of Black Hollow were never meant to leave. They had been part of the town's curse, drawn in by the dark force that took its victims. And now, he, too, was one of them. A part of something far darker than he could ever have imagined. This story, my story, is inspired by the 2020 film The Lodge.